Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Nice to see you. Thank you for giving up your time. For those of you that haven't joined, the learning lunches can feel a little breathless. They're just half an hour, but they're intended to amplify and share the work that's going on in the Our Shared World members and friends group, and also give you a chance to connect with people and have a talk and a discussion a little bit later on. So. It's 16 minutes past, Andrew. So I'm just going to start by giving a very quick introduction and then I'll hand over to you so you can get started. So we're thrilled to have Andrew today. Andrew Hadley, who's come to talk to us about Erasmus Plus. He's the director for CILL, which is the Centre for International Learning and Leadership, which is a training and consultancy company which promotes international thinking, values, and skills in education and employment. And it specializes in non-formal education with over 40 partners in over 40 countries. So in addition to those programs, CIL also advises on other organizations, develops joint international projects and contributes to public policy discussions. And a brief gander at Andrew's blog this morning, I thought I'd draw this quote where he notes he's a committed internationalist and believes that in these uncertain times, it is vital that we grow closer links with other countries and embrace diversity at home instead of building walls or opening up cultural divides. More than ever, we need to give our young people opportunities to interact with and learn from their peers in other countries and cultures. So I thought that was a really lovely note to start on. Andrew, thank you so much for coming. Over to you.
Thanks very much, Kathy, for the generous introduction, and thanks to everybody for coming. Uh, I'm not going to talk more about myself now. I'm going to crack on because time is very limited, and we'll try and get through as much information as we can. So I'm going to start by sharing a few slides. I'm going to assume no knowledge of Erasmus Plus, but I'm sure that many of you do have knowledge of it. So please forgive me if I'm teaching grandmothers to suck eggs or anything of that kind. Um, and um, and then at the end, there'll be a chance for some questions or indeed a short breakout session to carry on thinking about this. So without any further ado, let's crack on with it. I call it Back to the Future because partly because it is the future, but we've been in Erasmus Plus before, but also because Erasmus Plus is entirely about the future. It's about young people and education. Um, the first thing is this awful myth. You'll hear this phrase time and again in the media. It's peddled by politicians, particularly those who really don't want us to be part of this and don't want our young people to have these opportunities. They try and make out that it's all about privileged university students. So anytime you hear that phrase, or if anybody says that to you, please shout at them or tell them to stop, tell them they don't know what they're talking about. The reality is this. It's a wide-ranging program covering education, training, youth, and sport, and education in all its forms, whether that's formal, non-formal, higher education, secondary, primary, non-formal, and so on. So it really is a broad-based program, and it's a program with vision. Erasmus Plus has has a vision. This is from their program guide, and from the first page of the program guide, and you can read there that this is something about thinking it's bigger picture thinking. And I just single out I think one or two of you have probably been on our recent webinars, so apologies for any repetition here, but I think it's wonderful to see that people in the European Commission at high policy level are thinking that it's important for young people across Europe to learn two foreign languages, whereas in this country we really struggle to get them to learn one. And that's its general objective. I'm not going to dwell on that slide, but it is about the development of people, and not just young people, all people. And here are the key priorities of the programme, most notably inclusion. So forget about the privileged university students and so on. This is about primarily what they call young people with fewer opportunities. So it's about widening access, widening participation, digital transformation, the environment, which is obviously what our shared world is primarily all about, and then democratic participation, citizenship, and so on. And those things are, to a huge degree, all of those themes are linked. And what these horizontal priorities mean is that every Erasmus Plus project has to make reference and at least support at least one of those priorities directly, which is not difficult to do. A few key facts. It's a project-based program. So people say, how do young people apply to take part in Erasmus Plus, especially if they're not at universities? Well, they don't. It's organizations that apply for the funding, and then the organization organizes the project, whether that's a school or any other kind of organization. Only at universities do young people have to make their own applications, really. Because it's the university will apply for the pot of funding, but then the student has to apply to the university. And that's where the privilege thing comes in, because as you can imagine, young people with a background that doesn't involve a lot of internationalism or higher education in their family would find it much more difficult to make those applications. Funding comes to organizations. Projects can be up to 3 years, and that's important because the UK has signed up to this program for 1 year in the first instance. Now, there's a technical reason for that, really, because 2027 is the final year of the current Erasmus Plus program, and the new funding round begins in 2028. So, all things being equal, we will be signing up for the new program in 2028. Grants can vary tremendously in their size, and most projects are partnership based, so you need a partner in at least one other country. And very importantly, from the political point of view, people say, "Oh, this is Brussels, the dead hand of Brussels bureaucracy and so on." No, the program is mostly devolved and administered at the national level, which is important because it can relate to national priorities and indeed local priorities, which are assessed by the national agency. And there are a whole variety of other training and resources made available through the program, which are not part of the grant funding itself. So those are the type of organizations that can apply, massively varied. It's very hard to think of a kind of an organization that isn't able to take part in Erasmus Plus, actually. And the things you can do, people are mainly familiar with the mobility projects aspect, which are the exchanges and those sorts of things, study visits, job shadowing, of course, those sorts of things, very, very relevant to the schools and education sector. And then what's less known are the bigger projects, which receive larger amounts of funding, which are partnership projects, which could be about developing new curricula, new methodologies, materials, and so on, and which might involve some mobility of staff and students, but that might be a relatively minor project. And people forget about that because it's a substantial amount of the grant funding goes on those sorts of things, and various other types as well. I just single out there e-twinning for those of you in the school sector. E-twinning is the platform for classroom links, a very safe and secure, robust platform that teachers and schools can sign up to with complete confidence. The reason it's in red there is part of a separate agreement with the European Commission. So currently we're not signed up to that, but the negotiations are ongoing, and I'm assured that we will be. That the UK will be back in that program, which is incredibly popular and which also reaches particularly primary schools in a way that parts of the other parts of the program perhaps don't enable mobility, at least for primary students, although they can be. Primary schools can run partnerships. So where we are now, we're going in. The British Council is going to be the UK national agency, which will be responsible for promoting and managing and evaluating the program. It's very important to say, I and our organisation we're not official representatives of Erasmus Plus. So although I was billed on the initial slide as being CILL and Erasmus Plus, well, no, I'm promoting Erasmus Plus We all are because we want it to be a success, but we don't have an official role in that. So we will be working with the national agency in due course. There's a higher education charter, which most universities, I think, have already signed up to or applied for. The first call will be in November, and the first application deadline is going to be early February 2027 for funding. There's a lot of funding available, but the challenge we've all got, and all of us collectively, is how do we get people to take up this funding? How do we make it a success? Because that money must be spent. And this is a graph from a survey which we ran recently, which showed that about 50% of people responding knew only little or nothing about Erasmus Plus, and equally that they will need a great deal of support. There's only a small, less than 10% who say they don't need any help with applying. So there's a big mountain to climb to get that funding spent, bearing in mind that many of the organisations that took part in the previous programme up to 2020 either no longer exist or have downsized or have refocused or have changed staff and so on. So the capacity has diminished. So we absolutely need to all pull together and make it a success. Just a few words about Intercom, because as well as CILL, which I've been introduced as, we've set up a new not-for-profit organisation called Intercom, which is designed to promote Erasmus Plus, to provide information and support, and indeed all international educational partnerships. So please do connect with us on that. And those are some of the apologies for the overlap of logos at the bottom there. We work with several other partners. The two main ones are the UK Global Learning Association for Schools and the Skills and Growth blog, which is run by our colleague Martin, who is a further education specialist. A few links. We'll put these in the chat as well at the end, and they'll be circulated. And this is important. Please do follow that link. Go to the British Council's Erasmus Plus page, because you can sign up to their newsletter there, and it's very important that you do that. Okay, we're going to stop and have a little breakout. And the aim of the breakout is just to brainstorm absolutely the things that come to your mind without much thought about what you might do for a shared world project using Erasmus Plus. Now, I would suggest because these breakouts are only going to last for about 5 minutes, so I would suggest that you literally say anything that comes to your mind about these 5 things, because this is how projects actually begin anyway. Over a cup of coffee, people come up with, wouldn't it be nice to work with 15-year-olds on to get them together to do an urban cleanup, let's say, something like it could be as simple as that, and then you develop it, and eventually get to the awful bureaucracy. And it is pretty grim, some of the bureaucracy of applying for Erasmus Plus, but the downside is massively outweighed by the benefits, both to yourselves, your staff, and the young people that you work with. So those 5 things would be what I would suggest you talk about in the breakouts. Any themes for your projects, how they might relate to your own priorities, the target groups you'd like to work with, ideas for types of activities, whether that's we want to take a group to Slovenia to have a look at the what's going on at Lake Bled or something like that. Any outputs you might want a project which is going to produce some specific lesson plans, for example, or you might just have in mind a particular country or a particular organization that you'd like to work with. So that is where we'll leave that.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. I know that it's just nowhere near enough time to even begin to scratch the surface for everyone. But we've got a really nice amount of time now just to start sharing some of these ideas. And Andrew, I don't know if you have a preference for people sharing out loud or in the chat. How would you like this?
I think I'd be very happy just to quickly just say what was said in the group that I was at. And then perhaps if somebody from each group could just quickly give a summary,
Perfect.
that'd be because we're never going to get further than that. I mean, really great to have Ali, Alex, and Eleanor in the group with fantastic ideas. I mean, Ali comes from a wonderful organisation called Headway Arts in Northumberland, working with people with learning difficulties through creative means and all that sort of thing. And for her, the focus would be on raising aspirations, using Erasmus Plus to raise aspirations, and there's a good track record there of success in doing so. Um, Alex picked up on that and talked about the use of theatre and education as a vehicle for change, particularly in rural areas, and also getting people to think differently about their potential professional futures, the types of careers that are open to them. And he mentioned specifically some professions are just regarded as gender based, but that's incorrect and that could be changed. And then finally, Eleanor had a very, very specific project in mind to extend the work that she's doing from Worcester on the National Emergency Briefing for Educators, which is a global of global importance. And I think that would be absolutely ideal for an Erasmus Plus project, or probably a partnership project, possibly quite a big one. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Andrew. Rob, I wonder if you could feedback from your group, what came up for you? Rob or Cecilia or Dom or Trevor. But I'm just picking on you, Rob, because you were the first I saw from the group.
Yeah, I mean, we were just introducing each other, really, to be honest, and trying to get our heads around it. I think this was all very new for all of us in our group. But I think we were already starting to recognise connections. We were talking about working at city scale across different cities, recognising that there were commonalities there. I think commonalities you might expect on this call with working with young people and particularly giving them space and power to have their voices heard. So I think we were, it was very quick, isn't it? I think given another 20 minutes, we might have come up with some specific responses to those questions about our focus. But I think we were just trying to find our feet at that particular moment. But yeah, that's sort of where we got to, I think. But anyone else, feel free if I've missed something.
Thank you. And that is so often the way. And again, these are just little sparks that we like to think of what might emerge.
Could I just respond very, very quickly, Rob, your point about cities? I have literally just come from another meeting earlier this morning with a network called the Core Cities, which are 11 of the major cities of the UK, talking about Erasmus Plus and how they could get involved as enablers and promoters of the programme. And that was very positive. So I'm very glad to hear that you talk about cities.
That was sort of introduced by me, Andrew,
Yeah,
and I'd mentioned your meeting.
Oh, fine. Okay, good.
It was because we had connections from Manchester and Edinburgh, who are both members of the Core Cities.
Brilliant.
So.
Perfect. I love it. I just love how all these connections start to emerge. I wonder if we could hear from Martin or Martin's group next about what came up in your room.
Yeah, so probably the least qualified to report back to the least experience of kind of working with Erasmus. But yeah, we were largely, again, 5 minutes is not very long, largely sharing our sort of kind of experiences in the past, learning through landscapes. Matt was sharing about some of the kind of work that they've done in the past around kind of exchanges between countries, kind of with teachers for training and development of training programs for teachers as well, kind of now used as sort of standard across European countries. And we were talking about the kind of potential around CPD and teacher CPD and how we might be able to kind of link that up between different countries within Europe as well as potentially combining that sort of idea around twinning back into the classroom, sort of e-twinning platform potentially being used for that. Yeah, there was quite a bit of other stuff discussed, but I didn't write anything down, so I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in.
And of course, people are welcome to share in the chat as well if you'd rather not speak it out loud. Thank you so much, Martin. That's really helpful as well. I'll go to room 3 now, and let's hear from Emma. Emma Espley, if you're happy to just give a little rundown of what came out in the group.
Yeah, we were just really talking. We got a couple of one representative from business, which is actually rather local to me. So I'm hoping that I might be able to work with Catherine and collaborate in some way. And another with HE, which I think was Edinburgh. And we were just sort of really talking about how HE might sort of link with schools perhaps, and how businesses could link with schools. And sort of one of the things that we were talking about is there's a big focus at the moment on sort of green skills, green jobs, and careers within secondary schools. And also going down to primary. So that was sort of one area perhaps that we might be able to link. And we talked about schools having to appoint sustainability leads from September 2025 and having action plans in place from December 2025. My experience is that some are doing quite well. Others are just sort of beginning to get on board. So anything to do with sort of climate change, sustainability for a project would be, very apt as well. We talked about sort of school budgets being very, very tight, and any funding that we could secure to enable us to work sort of with schools on sort of collaboration projects, would be really well received.
Brilliant. Thanks, Emma. That was a lot condensed into 5 minutes of conversation and then a minute of summary. So thank you so much for that. And finally, we'll hear from group 5. So I wonder, Heidi, would you be happy just to share a little overview of what came out in your conversation?
Yeah, we spoke about some existing work that the partners in the room were doing and how we could link together. So we were talking about transitional work, connecting young people to understand that they form part of a bigger picture and that what they do isn't in isolation, that it all connects to each other, and learning that good practice from one another and sharing those ideas. So one of the projects that we run is a forestry course. So getting young people secondary ready from primary across that difficult transition. So improving confidence and skills and team working and public speaking, but through forestry activities, and actually learning that looking after our natural planet is vital wherever we are in the world, and how that happens across different locations. I was also with Global Learning Leads, and they were talking about some of the work that they'd been doing with schools as well. So I don't know whether they want to interject on what I've not said.
Yeah, just to say that we've been working with schools around a climate curriculum, trying to kind of say, what is it? How can we work with the existing curriculum in schools without overloading teachers, but to kind of include what needs to be included. And we'd be really up for collaborating with anybody over developing that. And we also had Lisa in the room, and so we were thinking about HE connections and whether there was scope for doing some research around kind of a project, like having a university involved as a kind of research partner as well.
Brilliant. I'm going to pass back to you in a moment, Andrew. But thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you as well, Heidi, and thank you everyone for sharing. If you do have any more ideas, please do stick them in the chat. And if you have any questions around Erasmus Plus, then please do put them in the chat as well. And our Shared World and Andrew will reply to them after the webinar and get those back to you. We are at time, so if you do need to leave them, please feel free to. But if you can stay on for just a couple more minutes, we just have a last few things to say. But Andrew, I'll pass back to you just to kind of wrap up this bit before Kathy sees us out.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just a couple of comments. Fantastic. This is such a great theme. And one of the things I didn't mention is that projects can be cross-sectoral, and the environment is the one thing probably above all that needs to involve people from all sorts of different sectors, be that university, businesses, local authorities, and so on. And you can have projects combining any of those organizations. And also there's nothing to stop, for example, a university applying to the youth sector of the program, or a school applying for the youth part as well. So it's very, very, very flexible. And finally, there's going to be a lot of money available next year, which needs to be spent. So your chances of success are probably going to be better than they ever have been. So, I would advise everybody to apply. And just want to have a wave to Emma. Very nice to see you here today, Emma. Thank you very, very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for sparking lots of conversations and ideas, I think, there. And thank you for taking the time to walk us all through it and give us that sense of there being money in the offing for people to do these things they're passionate about. So many, many thanks. And thanks to all of you for coming today. I'm just very briefly announcing the next Learning Lunch, which will be on the 2nd of next month. And we're hosting Jamie Cloud from the Cloud Institute for Sustainability in New York, who will be coming to talk to us. She's a speaker, an author, has just written a new book called Responsible: How to Live Well Over Time on Planet Earth. But she'll be looking at the intersection between language, the language we use, and how we work towards sustainability education. So it should be a really fascinating session. Do please come and join us. And Andrew, thank you very much again for coming. Thank you.